They say betrayal doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it comes as a ping on your phone, in the middle of a party, surrounded by people who think your life is perfect. My moment looked like this. I want a divorce. All communication from here on goes through my lawyer. Also, I moved the money. Happy anniversary. That was the text. No warning, no conversation, just green bubbles on a screen. I was standing in our backyard, next to the cake I baked from scratch, still wearing the silver dress he once said made me look like old Hollywood. There were candles on the table, fairy lights overhead, friends chatting, jazz playing low in the background, and me, smiling like a fool, holding my phone, reading those 3 sentences over and over again. I thought maybe it was a prank, a cruel joke, a hack, a mistake. But when I looked up, I saw him, over near the grill, whispering to his friend, sipping scotch, and laughing like he hadn't just detonated our entire life. He didn't even look my way. I stood frozen, with one hand still clutching a plate of deviled eggs. I could feel my legs locking, my throat closing. 22 years, a child, a home, all wiped out in one blinking notification. And the worst part? Nobody around me knew yet. They still thought we were the perfect couple. They were making toasts to us, smiling, asking when we'd finally take that trip to Italy. I felt like I was sinking, but I couldn't scream, couldn't cry, because what would I say? Excuse me, my husband just texted me our marriage is over and stole everything we had. Would anyone like more potato salad? So I excused myself, smiling like my face wasn't falling apart. I walked to the kitchen, closed the door behind me, and then I opened the banking app. 0.00 everything. Gone. The house fund, the retirement savings, my portion of the Etsy income, the emergency stash for our daughter's braces, all transferred out, all while I was out there lighting candles and checking the oven and setting the playlist to his favorite jazz tracks. He didn't just blindside me, he timed it. He planned it to hit during the party when I'd be trapped in smiles and handshakes. A text, a withdrawal, a public stage to watch me crumble, quietly. I didn't break down. Not yet. I just stood there, hands trembling, jaw locked. And then Clara walked in, my best friend, pale, wide-eyed, clutching her phone. "Grace," she said softly. He already posted it. She turned her phone to me. His Facebook status. Single again. Time for a fresh start. Posted 10 minutes ago. People were already liking it, commenting, some joking, some flirting. Like our life together had just been an expired carton of milk he finally tossed. I leaned on the counter to keep from collapsing, and in that moment, something inside me shifted. Not just heartbreak, not just betrayal, something else. A quiet kind of fire, because he thought he'd left me powerless. But what he didn't know is that while he was busy stealing from me, I'd been keeping my own records. And memories, especially the painful ones, don't fade. They sharpen, and they wait. They say when someone breaks your heart, it doesn't happen all at once. It starts slowly, quietly, in a missed glance, a forgotten detail, in the way they stop asking how your day was, in the way they say we less and I more. Looking back, I can't name the exact moment I lost him, but I can name all the moments I told myself I hadn't. We met in college. I was studying education. He was pre-law. I remember the first time he saw me, really saw me, was in the library, hair tied up, glasses on, buried under books. He told me I looked like someone who could build her own world from scratch. I believed him. For the first few years, we were everything. Best friends, teammates, lovers. We dreamed together, built a little life out of hand-me-down furniture and grocery store wine. He made me feel like I could do anything, and that even if I didn't, he'd still be there. When we married, we didn't have much, but we had a pact. He'd chase the big job. I'd hold down the home. And once things were stable, I'd go back to school. Maybe start that tutoring business I always talked about. I never went back. Life got in the way. Or maybe love did. Our daughter came. Then a mortgage. Then his firm needed more of him. And I just adapted. I made packed lunches and printed spelling worksheets. I took his dry cleaning in and scrubbed crayon off the walls. I paid the bills, ran the bake sales, stayed up with our daughter when she had croup and wouldn't let anyone else touch her. I was the background music to his spotlight, and I told myself that was enough. He was always charming, always ambitious. I liked that about him. But as the years wore on, that ambition grew teeth. He started working late, started drinking more scotch than wine, started using phrases like "I provide" and "you wouldn't understand" during arguments that weren't even really arguments, just quiet reminders of how small my world had become. Still, I defended him, to my friends, to my family, to myself. He's just stressed. He's under pressure. He didn't mean it that way. The first time he forgot our anniversary, I chalked it up to his workload. The second time, he sent flowers, but to my old address. I laughed it off. And yet, I remember the way he looked at the florist's apology note and said, "You're lucky I remembered it all." It wasn't the words that stung. It was the casual shrug. Like I should be grateful he'd done the bare minimum. Like I should expect less. Somewhere along the way, he stopped asking about my day. Stopped noticing when I got my hair done. Stopped saying thank you. But I didn't stop. I kept packing lunches. Kept ironing his shirts. Kept covering for him when our daughter asked why Daddy missed the school play, again. I thought if I just loved harder, tried more, gave enough, he'd come back to the version of himself I married. But you can't love someone into being who they used to be. The signs were there. I know that now. There were late-night texts he wouldn't let me see. Work trips that didn't match his itinerary. Password changes on our shared accounts. The sudden, bitter defensiveness when I asked simple questions. And still, I stayed. Because where would I go? What would I do? Who would believe me if I said the man with the charming smile and sharp suit was fading into a stranger? He made sure everyone adored him. That was his gift. In public, he was attentive, affectionate. He'd hold my hand at dinner parties, kiss me on the cheek before getting in the car. And the moment the door closed, the silence would return. There were no slaps, no screaming matches, just distance and condescension. And the slow erosion of my confidence, so gradual I didn't notice until I couldn't remember the last time I felt proud of who I was. One night, about 6 months before the party, I found an empty gift box in his briefcase. Velvet-lined, jewelry-sized, there was no receipt, no note, no explanation. When I asked, he barely looked up from his phone. "Client gift," he said. "Don't go digging." That should have been it, right? The moment I snapped, demanded answers, walked out. But I didn't. I baked his favorite pie that night. Because that's what I'd always done when things felt shaky. I tried to hold things together with crust and cinnamon and hope. And I remember, he didn't even eat it. Just walked past the kitchen and said, "You really need a hobby." That was the moment I stopped baking and started watching. Because deep down, I think I knew something was already gone. Not just his love, but my illusion that I was still in a partnership. I started noticing how he always carried 2 phones, how he'd laugh in the other room with someone he never mentioned, how he kept a new cologne in his gym bag, a scent I'd never smelled on him. I began to pay attention to what wasn't being said, and that silence told me more than his words ever did. So no, when I got that text, I wasn't shocked he left. I was shocked by how cleanly he did it, how shamelessly, how publicly, and most of all, I was stunned by myself, by how long I had loved someone who had long since stopped loving me. But the thing about love, real love, is that even when it breaks you, it leaves something behind, a core, a spine, a thread of steel you didn't know was there. And for the first time in years, I felt it tighten. There's a certain quiet that follows heartbreak. It doesn't come all at once. It trickles in, like fog slipping through a cracked window. After that night, I didn't sleep for more than a few hours at a time. I'd lie in bed with the glow of my phone against my face, watching the shadows shift across the ceiling, trying to piece together what I had missed. Not just what he did, but when. The timeline. The lies. the double life I somehow slept beside. I started with our bank records. He thought I wouldn't notice. How clever. But I'd always been the one who balanced our books, paid the bills, labeled folders in a filing cabinet he never once opened. So when I looked back, I saw it. Small transfers at first. $200 here, $500 there. All to a separate account I didn't recognize. Then came a big one. $8,000 labeled consulting fees. On a weekend, from our vacation fund. And it wasn't just the money. There were hotel charges in cities he never mentioned. Flower shop receipts from towns he said were boring conferences, a boutique lingerie store in Arizona with a date that landed squarely on our daughter's birthday. That one felt like a slap. And yet, I stayed calm. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I needed to see it all. I needed the whole picture before I let myself grieve. I began sorting the evidence like puzzle pieces, printed every transaction, highlighted every date. Labeled emails I found on our shared desktop, some from women I didn't know, others from burner accounts that linked back to him through forgotten recovery emails. I found a spreadsheet hidden in a subfolder titled Q4 Strategy. Inside, a breakdown of asset divisions, his plan for separating our finances, how to time the market, how to legally minimize alimony exposure. It was meticulous and cold, like he'd been preparing for war while I was still making his coffee. Then came the moment I couldn't unsee. I found a message thread, not from him, but from her. At first I didn't recognize the name, but when I clicked on the attachments, everything stopped. Photos of the two of them, in a mountain cabin, his arms around her, his face pressed into her neck, and the last one, him, standing next to her in front of a fireplace, holding up a onesie that said, "Daddy's little CEO." I didn't breathe. I read the caption she posted privately to her close friends group, something he clearly didn't think I'd ever find. So grateful for this man, starting a new chapter with the love of my life. She was pregnant. It wasn't just an affair, it was a family. Another life he'd already begun building, while I was home checking the expiration dates on the milk and folding laundry with holes. I sat there with those pictures in my hands, not crying, not shaking, just hollow. Even then, I didn't tell anyone, not Clara, not my daughter, not even my reflection, because something shifted in me right then, not rage, not revenge, but clarity. I knew now what I was dealing with. This wasn't a man who made a mistake. This wasn't about a bad patch or stress or falling out of love. This was deliberate. He had replaced me before he even left me. And yet, he thought he'd done it cleanly, quietly, that I'd be too devastated or too ashamed to dig. He thought I'd curl up, fall apart, go quietly. But no. I started documenting everything, not just for me, not even for the courts. But because for the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. I made backup drives, printed statements, took photos of his hidden stash of burner phones. I even contacted a friend of mine from years ago, Elise, who now worked in private investigations. I didn't ask her to tail him. I didn't need her to. I just wanted her to teach me how to track without being seen. And she did. I learned how to mirror his phone to a cloud, how to trace account logins, how to set up email notifications when any legal document was filed in our county. Within 3 weeks, I knew where he lived, who he lived with, how far along she was, what firm he was secretly applying to across the country. He wasn't just leaving me. He was planning to disappear, wipe his hands, start fresh, rewrite the story, make me the angry ex-wife who never supported him. I knew what I was looking at now, and I knew better than to scream. I didn't need a confrontation. I didn't need an audience. I needed timing. Because if he was bold enough to destroy me with a text message, on our anniversary no less, then I could be silent enough to make sure he never saw me coming. So I watched. I waited. And every time he posted a photo with her, every time he flashed his new life online, he gave me more rope. And I was collecting it, quietly, one knot at a time. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But I wasn't after revenge. Not really. I was after clarity, closure, a clean reclaiming of everything he thought he buried me under. And the truth is, when someone burns your house down, you don't rebuild in the same place with the same blueprint. You learn where the cracks were, and you build smarter. That's exactly what I did. I didn't post anything online, didn't tell mutual friends, didn't even change my relationship status. I played the role, the grieving ex-wife. I let the world believe what he wanted them to believe, until I was ready for them to see the whole picture. And that moment, it came exactly 5 weeks after he sent that text. He thought I'd be frozen, financially stuck, emotionally wrecked. What he didn't know, couldn't know, was that long before he ever sent that text, I had started protecting myself. I had my own small account he didn't know about. Nothing big, but enough. Enough to hire the right help, enough to cover a legal retainer and a forensic accountant, enough to buy me time. And time for a woman like me was all I needed. The first thing I did was file a temporary restraining order on all remaining joint assets. Yes, even the ones he hid. Elise's friend from the county clerk's office flagged his quiet property transfers just in time. He was shocked when the escrow froze. Even more stunned when his private condo, registered under a Shell LLC, was flagged for investigation. But I wasn't done. I filed for divorce, officially this time, on paper, with documentation. And then, I invited him to lunch. Yes, lunch. Neutral ground, public setting, a little Italian bistro we used to love. I picked the patio table near the fountain, his favorite spot. He showed up in a linen blazer, acting like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't detonated my life with a 3-sentence text. He smiled and said, "You look good." I smiled too, and said, "So do you." And then I slid a manila envelope across the table. He didn't open it right away. He just looked at it, confused, then smug, then cocky. "Look, Grace," he began. "I know things got messy, but I think if we just keep this amicable—" "Go ahead," I said softly. "Open it." Inside were 3 things. 1. A copy of our bank transactions going back 18 months, with his hidden withdrawals highlighted. 2. A printed chain of emails between him and Alyssa, including the ultrasound. 3. And the kicker, a cease and desist order for defamation, linked to the false claims he had made online about my emotional instability. His face paled, then flushed. He looked up at me with that familiar flicker of control, fading fast. "You were spying on me?" he hissed. "No," I said. "I was documenting." He leaned back, trying to collect himself. "You think this will hold up in court?" I nodded. "It doesn't need to, but I think the partners at your firm would find it very interesting, especially the part about using company funds for weekend getaways." He blanched. That was new information to him. He didn't know I'd traced those payments too. The patio was quiet, just the soft splash of the fountain behind us and the occasional clink of silverware. I sipped my water and held his gaze. He blinked, swallowed, and then laughed, low, humorless. "You really planned this." I smiled. "You thought I wouldn't." He sat there stunned, mouth half open, as if trying to think of a way to turn the tables back. But the board had already flipped, and I was the one holding every piece. I let the silence stretch. Let him feel it. What it's like to be outmaneuvered by someone you underestimated for years. "I'm not trying to ruin you," I said gently. "I'm just not letting you rewrite the story." He scoffed. "What story?" I leaned forward, elbows on the table. "The one where I was bitter, the one where you finally got out of some horrible clinging marriage, the one where you were the hero for starting over." I paused. "You don't get to tell that version anymore." He looked around, suddenly aware of the other diners. He lowered his voice. "What do you want?" "I want you to sign the settlement," I replied, without contest. "I want my share of the retirement, the property, full legal custody of our daughter, and I want your silence." His eyebrows shot up. "That's rich." "It's generous," I said. "Because the alternative involves a courtroom, testimonies, your employer being subpoenaed, the condo in her name being scrutinized, The pregnancy you tried to keep quiet being entered into evidence. And your firm realizing their rising star has a habit of falsifying reimbursements. His jaw clenched. I smiled politely. Your call. The envelope on the table was still there. But the real leverage sat inside my handbag, a thumb drive, with backups of everything. And that wasn't all. I had already booked an appointment with a reporter from a local investigative podcast. I hadn't sent them the documents yet, but they were interested. Very interested. Especially in the financial angle. They even asked if I'd be willing to tell my story anonymously. I hadn't decided. Not yet. But the fact that I could? That was power. And he felt it. He didn't speak for a long time, just stared at the envelope, then at me. Then he reached for the pen in his jacket pocket. When I walked away from that lunch, I didn't feel victorious. Not in the dramatic, movie-ending kind of way. I felt something better. Clean. No screaming. No courtroom tantrum. No revenge porn. Just strategy. Just truth. And the quiet reclaiming of my own name. Of course, the final blow hadn't landed yet. That would come later, at the firm's year-end gala, the one he planned to attend with her, proudly on his arm, the one where he thought no one knew the real story. But I had a different plan for that night, one involving a charity presentation, one where the MC would read a letter I wrote, one where every executive would learn who really kept his career clean for the last decade. He didn't know it yet, but his name was already disappearing from the shortlist for partner. He thought he'd left me behind, but what he actually left behind was a trail, and I followed it. Not to destroy him. To remind myself that I wasn't the one who should be ashamed. He was. Because in the end he sent a text to end our life, and I responded, with a signature, a plan, and something far more dangerous than rage, proof. And I hadn't even used all of it yet. There's a certain beauty in watching the truth do its work. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to beg anyone to see. You just have to open the blinds. And eventually the light will pour in, whether they're ready or not. The first domino fell the week after our patio lunch. His firm called a private inquiry into inappropriate reimbursements. Someone from HR reached out to me quietly, asking if I could confirm a few dates. I didn't say much. Just sent over a few itemized receipts, the kind with timestamps, and initials, and hotel names. By the end of the month, he was no longer on the firm's website. They called it a mutual parting. But mutuals don't look that panicked at 6 a.m. in their driveway when a board member pulls up unannounced. And she, his new partner, the one he built his shiny new future with, she lasted exactly 1 week after that. The moment the money slowed, the charm wore off. The Instagram stories vanished, and so did she. I didn't gloat. I didn't stalk her page or wait for karma to kick in, but a friend forwarded me a post she made one night. Something vague, full of phrases like trust is sacred and some people wear masks well. I didn't need the details. I knew the mask better than anyone. As for our daughter, he tried to visit. Once. Showed up with a last-minute invitation to brunch, a gift bag with tissue paper sticking out like a peace flag. She didn't even open it. She just looked at him, steady, quiet, and said, "You could have just said goodbye." And that broke him more than anything I ever could have done. Because when you lose your child's respect, not their fear, not their obedience, but their trust, you lose something you'll never buy back. He still sends her cards, generic ones, usually late. She keeps them in a drawer, doesn't rip them up, doesn't reply either. I asked her once if she ever wanted to call him. She shrugged. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. I just want peace, Mom." And that's exactly what we have now. Not fireworks, not revenge, but something quieter, stronger, stillness. The divorce finalized 2 months later. No drawn-out court battles, no drama in front of the judge. He signed everything, almost like he couldn't get away fast enough. But not before I made one final move. Remember that podcast I mentioned? The one hosted by the investigative reporter? I never went on air, but I did send over the documents. Stripped of names, but rich with facts. They ran an episode titled, "He Called Her Crazy. She Kept the Receipts." It exploded. Not just because of the scandal, though yes, the embezzlement, the affair, the falsified tax filings got their moment, but because the story hit a nerve. Thousands of listeners wrote in, not asking about the man, but asking about me. How I stayed calm, how I protected myself, how I walked away without burning down the world. The producer sent me a note. You gave so many women permission to stop apologizing for surviving. I cried when I read that. Because for so long I thought surviving meant being silent, meek, forgiving too quickly. But I learned sometimes surviving means documenting. Sometimes it means walking away with your dignity intact and letting the world do the rest. As for him, he moved states, took a smaller job. I heard from a friend that he tells people it just didn't work out, that we wanted different things. And you know what? He's right. I wanted loyalty. He wanted loopholes. I wanted partnership. He wanted power. So yes, we wanted different things, but the difference now is that I know what I'm worth. And I didn't need to shout to prove it. He lost his job, his reputation, the respect of his daughter, and he'll never get back the version of me who would have forgiven him with a single apology and a warm plate of dinner. That woman is gone. And in her place stands someone quieter, smarter, stronger. Not bitter, not broken, just done. Mornings are different now. Not louder, not busier, just mine. I wake up when the sun hits the window, not when a calendar tells me to. I pour 1 cup of coffee, black, strong, no cream, no explanation. I drink it slowly in the chair by the window, the one no one else ever liked. And that's the point. There's a photo of me and my daughter on the shelf. One she took herself on her phone. My hair's a mess. I'm laughing at something she said. It's not posed. It's not perfect. It's real. Sometimes I think about the life I thought I wanted. The one where I'd still be married, still hosting dinner parties, still saving receipts for someone else's comfort. But then I think of who I've become since he left. I speak softer now, but I mean more when I do. I don't apologize for crying in front of friends. I don't fold myself into smaller spaces to keep the peace. I take up space, quietly, fully, and without permission. People ask if I'm angry, if I still feel betrayed. But the truth is, that part passed. There's a difference between carrying pain and carrying lessons, and I carry a lot of those. I learned that love is not loyalty at the cost of yourself, that silence doesn't always mean strength, and sometimes it means survival, that it's okay to be the one who remembers everything, because memory is how we honor what we endured. Healing didn't come all at once. It came in tiny, stubborn ways, in planting flowers again, in sleeping through the night, in laughing so hard I didn't brace for it to stop, in looking in the mirror and thinking, I know her again, and I like her. Some people imagine healing as fireworks, some sudden moment when everything just feels okay again. Mine didn't look like that. It looked like watering plants on the porch without checking the time. It looked like deleting his number without shaking. It looked like putting on lipstick again. Not for anyone, just because I liked the color. It came in texts from my daughter that just said, home soon, and nothing else, because there was no tension, no need to explain. It came in walks alone through the farmer's market on Sundays, in buying the bread I liked, in saying no without guilt, in saying yes without asking permission. I didn't become someone new. I simply became someone unafraid. And the fear was the last thing to go. Because after betrayal, after watching someone you love discard you like a used napkin, the world feels unsafe. Even your own reflection feels unfamiliar. But one day I caught myself humming in the kitchen. I didn't plan it, didn't notice it at first. But there it was, music, inside me, again. I knew then that I hadn't just survived him. I had survived the version of myself that thought I needed him. And if you've ever been there, if you're still there, I want to say this. You don't need to rush. You don't need to explain. You don't need to become someone new. You just need to return to the you before the silence, before the shrinking, before the apology in your voice every time you asked for something small. that you is still there, and she's patient, she's strong, she's waiting. Not all endings are tragic, some are just new names for freedom. Have you ever gone through something like this? I'd love to hear your story below. And if you want more stories that remind you healing is possible, feel free to subscribe.